Dynasty Nerds on Better Sports Network.
Oh, it's Thursday night. You know what that means. It's Dynasty Nerds. It's the Better Sports Network. We are here. We are live here at 9 p.m. Eastern Time here in the great state of Ohio. I am your host, Garret Price, and man, fun show planned for tonight. We are having my good friend Stephen P. Coach out there on Twitter. He's going to be joining me in just a few minutes. We're going to be doing some fun things. We're going to be going over, if you guys have been paying attention on Twitter, the Immaculate Grid. It's something that has started sweeping the Twitter streets. It's basically this grid where you have to match up one team and so a player that would have played on both of these teams, or a player that if it's baseball, batted over 300 and also played for the Expos, or different kinds of things like that. But they just launched today the official Immaculate Grid NFL version. Now there's other ones, the crossover grids that we're doing NFL ones, but this is the official one from Pro Football Reference. We're going to be doing it tonight. Steven and I are going to be doing it. And then Dennis and I are going to try to do it again, the same exact one, but we can't pick any of the players that we picked the first time around. So we're going to give ourselves that extra boost, that extra challenge. It's going to be awesome. So really excited about that. We're also going to be talking some training camp battles tonight. Guys that we're kind of keeping an eye on where they stand after the training camp goes and, heading into preseason and things like that. We want to keep an eye on some of these guys because that's going to give us some good insight as to players that we're wanting to target, players that we're wanting to avoid. We had some news even today that it's not necessarily a training camp battle, but the Jordan Addison thing, like all of this kind of stuff is stuff that we're kind of keeping our eye on. So Steven and I, we're going to be talking a little bit of, who we're wanting, who we're keeping an eye on, how we think these things are going to shake out. And then we're going to head over in that mid period, of course, going to get to all the trades I can get to. Make sure you flood the inbox here, all the comments with the questions. And then last but not least, when Dennis is here, like I said, we're going to do the Immaculate Grid again. We're just going to not be able to use any of the same names we used before, which is going to make it even more challenging. But then last but not least, we're going to be talking about players that we can't leave our drafts without. If you're doing a dynasty draft, we have certain players that we're like, can't do it. I have got to make sure I get this player every single time. I cannot miss out on getting this guy. So I'm interested, and we don't know who each other picked. So Dennis and I will be talking through that as well. And then at some point, my boy Heavy T, Tyler, the producing, we were talking beforehand. This was something I was thinking about too. And so maybe we'll incorporate this at some point in the show. But he's in the middle of watching the Netflix series Quarterback. I am just about done. I'm on the last episode. My wife is watching with me, which has been really fun to get to do that together. But we're talking about who do we think, or who do we want the next three quarterbacks to be? Do we want them to fall into the same roles as before, or guys in different roles? It'll be very interesting. We're also crossing our fingers that the weather holds up, because where I'm at, there is severe thunderstorm warnings all in place, wind gusts up to 60 mile an hour, hail possible. So we'll see if this all keeps up all night. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we do not have any issues. But Steven is here. Steven is waiting. So let's bring him on right now. Steven, what's up, buddy? Oh, I don't think I can hear you.
I'm here. I'm here.
He's here. What's up, buddy?
Not too much, man. Pretty good, man. Just another day here in New Jersey. So I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to do this Immaculate Grid thing. I just looked it up. I was like, what was this? When you posted it, I was like, what is that? I have no idea what it was. I was like, oh, this is going to be fun. So
yeah, it's a little different. It gets the wheels turning. I enjoy. I like puzzles. I'm a game guy, so I really enjoy that kind of stuff. But before we get into that, I mentioned, have you watched the Netflix series Quarterback yet?
I watched the first episode so far.
Okay,
haven't finished it yet, obviously, but it's very interesting. Very, very interesting. Yeah, I recommend anyone who hasn't watched it to watch it. It's amazing.
Yeah, I'm curious, because there have been some people that said they didn't like it, and I get it, like hardcore football guys, they don't care about like the off the field stuff. But for me, I find that stuff fascinating, and my wife has loved it as well. So getting to watch like something football related together has been nice because
that is
on
nice.
Sundays she's like, yeah, I don't really care. I don't care what happens. But if it were up to you, what 3 quarterbacks would you want to see on there next time?
Oh man. I would love to see a rookie on there and see how a rookie goes about their first off season as a pro, and then maybe a player who, like Aaron Rodgers. I don't want to just say Aaron Rodgers because we're going to see him in a couple of weeks, but like a quarterback that has like high profile that changes teams after years at one team doing all the same thing year to year out, but now has a whole new regimen. That'd be pretty interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we were talking before, a guy that I think might be kind of interesting is Geno Smith. Geno's kind of this middle of the road guy. Will he be able to like keep this job another year? It looks like it. They gave him the contract and things like that, but things are still a little up in the air with him. Drew Lock is still there waiting in the wings just in case. Pete Carroll and that whole organization, fun personality and whatnot. But we were also talking about, so far they picked like all married dudes and everybody there's only so many married guys in the league. Like a lot of these quarterbacks are bachelors or just dating somebody, don't have kids. So I'd be curious to see, some of those guys, what it would be like if they kind of turned that on its head a little bit. But
that would be cool. Maybe next year.
There's always next year. That's what I've learned as a Browns fan. Okay. All right, let's pull up the Immaculate Grid. So Tyler, if you wouldn't mind getting that up on the screen, and I'll explain this for everybody that hasn't seen it. And also, hello, Sedated Fork, Sober Money, Just Josh. Appreciate you guys tuning in. So what this is as you can see, and I haven't even seen this one. I was looking at the crossover grid one earlier, so I haven't necessarily even seen this one. But what we have here is a grid where you have to match up a player that would have played for both the 49ers and for the Eagles. You'd have to find somebody that played both for the Vikings and for the Eagles. You'd have to find an Eagles player that had 1,000-yard receiving season, which, for fantasy football people, that part will be pretty easy, finding 1,000-yard receivers. But Steven, just looking at this, do you feel pretty confident?
Yeah, I would say the first one has my buttons turning a little bit, but the rest of it I think I got pretty hands down, I'm pretty sure. So
nice. Okay. Well, we're going to do it together. Let's start with ones that you think are layups that you got easily.
I mean the Eagles and 1,000-yard receiving season, AJ Brown.
AJ Brown. All right, let's put AJ Brown in there. And I do know that there's also like a scoring system for rarity. I'm not sure if I'm good enough yet to do like the rarity on it. I want to just get it all right. But maybe if we're confident on like a rare player that people wouldn't have guessed, we can try that too. All right. Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, there's so many that we could go with recently. Obviously, we could go with Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, guys like that. We could even go a little deeper, maybe like a Dwayne Bowe.
That's what I was thinking, a Dwayne Bowe type. That's what I was thinking, a Dwayne Bowe type.
I like it. Let's put Dwayne Bowe in there over the Dwayne Bowe. All right. I'm curious the rarity on this. 17. Okay. I thought it would have been a little more rare than that, but
yeah, that's what I thought too.
All right.
Interesting.
Atlanta Falcons 1,000-yard receiver. Julio's the layup.
I think Julio is obviously the easy layup. Calvin Ridley. I don't know how high people are on Rodney White. I mean, he had a couple 1,000-yard seasons, obviously, in Atlanta.
Roddy White did. Yeah, he was pretty awesome. I'm trying to remember, did Peerless Price had to have had 1,000-yard receiving season, right? Or no?
Oh, man. I'm trying to think of that too now. He might have.
What about Crumpler? Did Algie Crumpler ever get 1,000 yards?
I don't think so. I think his highest might have been like 700 or 800.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think he got 1,000-yard season. Man, I'm trying to think who played with Vic in the day, and I'm like, who else would have got 1,000 yards?
Now, running backs don't very often hit the 1,000-yard mark. But Warrick Dunn, I mean, he might have, but I would hate to risk it and get it wrong because I want to get this thing perfect.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's way too risky.
Yeah.
I'm saying Rodney White or I guess Calvin Ridley because they're not they're obvious, but they're not as obvious as Julio type. So
right, let's go Roddy White. I'm good with going Roddy White. All right, let's see. Roddy White, 26%. All right.
Man.
Okay, so we got the easy ones out of the way. These were the layups. Now's where it gets a little trickier. Are there any one of those that you're like, I think I got somebody pretty easily? Now, remember, it doesn't have to be fantasy players. We're going to be more in tune.
Right.
Oh, by the way, Heavy T said Peerless Price did not have a 1,000-yard receiving season, so I'm glad we did not go that route.
But yes, very glad on that one. I thought he might have.
I would have lost that bet. If you would have asked me, did he have a 1,000-yard receiving season, I would have said yes, and I would have lost that bet. What was his highest, Tyler? What was his highest? I'd be curious. All right. Any of these that you're like, I got a guy right away that I want to pick.
Trying to go through the motions here. I have the Chiefs and the 49ers, I think.
Okay. Who you got for Chiefs and Niners?
Jerick McKinnon.
Jerick McKinnon. Yep.
Yeah.
Although you could also even put him for Chiefs and Vikings.
Oh, yeah. You could do that too.
McKinnon started his career there as well.
That's true too.
Well, we'll do Chiefs and Niners.
Or Alex Smith. Alex Smith was a Chief at one point, right? Right? Not messing up.
Alex Smith, yep. He was there right before Mahomes.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So either McKinnon or Alex Smith would be pretty solid options, I think.
All right. We're getting Jerick McKinnon up right now. I think it's Jerrick.
I think it's just one R.
Is it just one R?
But I'm terrible at spelling, but I'm pretty sure it's just one R.
There it is. Yep, just one R. All right, 8%. That's a pretty good one. 8%.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Nice.
All right. So Minnesota Vikings, Kansas City Chiefs. I'm trying to remember. I know for sure this guy, and this is like a random one, and I only know it because he also played with the Browns. But Anderson Sendejo was a safety. And I know he played for the Vikings.
Yes,
I'm trying to remember if he played for the Chiefs, which I believe he did.
Oh man.
But that's risky. So let's save Sendejo if we can't think of anybody.
Right.
But I'm pretty confident he played for both the Chiefs and the Vikings.
Yeah,
Pretty
I
confident.
I don't remember him on the Chiefs, but it's very possible. So,
all right. Vikings Falcons. We got a Vikings Falcons.
Oh man. I'm trying to think who was on the Vikings and the Falcons at the same time. Oh man.
That's tough.
These ones are a little tougher.
It's true. It's true. Peter said he failed the grid today. Sedated Fork said Andre Rison would have been my shot. Old school Tecmo Bowl. That would have been a good one. He said Zach Ertz was at 2%. Zach Ertz, Philadelphia, and
1,000 yards.
Oh, for 1,000 yards. I was like Philadelphia, but who else? All right, so that makes sense. And then Better Boss says, "What's up, nerds? How's it going, man?" All right, we got to start taking some shots because we want to get to our other segment. So we might have to start getting a little risky. So let's try Sendejo.
I like
or
it.
Vikings Chiefs. Come on, baby. Come on, baby. Oh, it was wrong. Oh, I failed us.
Oh, man.
Oh, I thought for sure he played for both.
Oh, God. It's all right. It's all right. It's all right. Who's the guy on the Eagles offensive line that the defensive line that just went to the 49ers?
Oh,
let's get a layup one. It just happened.
Yeah.
He's
it's
a
the
big signing.
Tackle.
Musgrave? No. Hargrave. No.
Hargrave.
Hargrave. There it is. Yeah.
Yep. All right, Hargrave for the Eagles and Niners. All right. Let's see. While he's doing that, Falcons, Niners. It's even harder when people are watching you.
Oh, yeah. Everyone, we're on that spotlight right now.
Right. Oh, wait, it wasn't Hargrave?
Is it not Hargrave?
I guess not.
Oh,
We're
man.
doing so bad.
We're so bad. Oh, my God.
Oh, we're doing so bad.
Oh, God.
There was. They signed somebody. Who was it?
Oh, God. We're missing some easy layups. Easy. Oh, man.
We're missing easy layups, he said. Buckets. Now, this is easier for him because he's a Falcons fan.
Well, that makes a lot of sense.
So that definitely helps.
Man.
Oh, Josh says Brett Favre for Falcons and Vikings. That's a good one. We'll do Brett Favre. That's a good one.
We'll take a nice cheat. I like that.
Tyler said he'll let us know at the end who we should have said. Brett Favre. All right, so we've got 49ers and Falcons. Steve Young didn't play for the Falcons. It was the Bucks. It was the Bucks and Niners. Let's see. Man.
Warren Dunn didn't go. Warren Dunn was on the Bucks at one point, then the Falcons. Never mind. Man.
Oh, Trey Sermon. He is an Eagle now.
Trey Sermon. Yeah.
That's a good one.
That's a good one.
A deep dive.
Oh, man.
All right. So Trey Sermon for the Niners and Eagles. That's a good one.
That's a great one.
Wow. No, you're correct. He definitely played. Well, was signed by both. I don't think he played for both. But he was on both rosters. All right. We only got one guest left. A Viking / Eagle. We could go Viking / Chief. Or we can go Falcon / Niner.
Ooh. Man.
It's hard because we don't want to fill. Here's my issue. So I am a terrible multitasker. And so we're doing a live show, and I'm conscious of like I can't let there just be dead air, but I can.
Oh yeah, I get it.
And talk at the same time. So originally I was like, this is a great idea. We're absolutely doing this on the air. Everyone will love it. And then I'm sitting here like, I can't think of them. I don't know.
Just like we can't think of the names. I mean, oh man, I wish I knew more defensive players. I feel like there's a bunch of defensive players that would just absolutely just work in this situation here.
For sure.
But my defensive knowledge is not great. I'm all offense. So, I mean, I feel like someone on the Vikings and Eagles had to have played, their times there or something like that. Oh my God.
All right. I'm trying to think of everywhere. Like, okay, guys that were on one of these teams, but played on a lot of teams like Teddy Bridgewater. Teddy Bridgewater didn't play for the Chiefs or Eagles.
Didn't play for the Falcons or anything. No. Definitely not. We did that one already.
Warren Moon. Did Warren Moon ever play for the Chiefs or Eagles? No, but Cunningham did. Randall Cunningham played for both the Eagles and the Vikings.
Yeah, there we go.
All right, Randall Cunningham. See, this is the route I needed to go. I needed to just start thinking of players that played on a lot of teams. All right.
Man.
So, AKA, we stunk.
Not great.
We did terrible. All right, guys, tell us which ones we missed. All right, Tyler's gonna come on and tell us how dumb we are. All right, Tyler, come on. Let us have it.
Oh man, I'm scared.
You're like, I'm never coming on this show again, Garrett. Thanks for inviting me to make me look stupid.
Yeah, so you guys missed some very obvious ones.
Oh no.
I think especially for San Francisco Philly, Terrell Owens.
Yeah, that would have been a layup.
That was a layup, and personally for me, a layup for KC, Minnesota, Jared Allen.
Oh, yeah.
I honestly, if you would have asked me if Jared Allen played for Kansas City, I don't know that I could have told you he did.
Yeah, that was
I remember him with the Vikings vividly, but I do not remember him with the Chiefs.
That's where he's definitely more remembered as a Viking, but he started with Kansas City.
Okay, that's a good one.
And then I did use my Falcons fandom for 49ers Falcons because I went way old school. Steve DeBerg.
Oof.
That's a name I've heard in a minute.
Yeah, like that was way old school. I think I know the name. And I will say this for Eagles Vikings, I did not think of Randall Cunningham, but there was another quarterback that played for both, and that was Donovan McNabb.
McNabb did play for both. You're right.
He had a very late career stint with Minnesota.
Right after Washington.
Yeah, and both of those were so bad. Yeah. So, but you know what? For your first try, gold star. Good job, guys.
It could have been worse. It could have been worse.
It could have been much worse.
Yes.
The problem is now that we said all these names, I'm not allowed to use like any of them when we go with Dennis. So I just made this super hard.
We got some layups now. We got some layups now.
We'll do TO.
I think my advice for these type of games, because I've done this with the baseball one too, just try not to get cute with it. If there's a layup, just do it. Like,
just take the layup.
Yeah, like I'm going to be honest, Peerless Price, that's a little too cute, and I'm really glad he didn't.
And it would have hurt us if we would have gone that route.
Exactly, it would have killed you, and you would have had a third of the board undone. So it doesn't look as bad. But yeah, all right, you guys have a good one.
Thanks Tyler. Appreciate it, buddy. All right, Heavy T coming on. He was nicer than he could have been, I think. All right, Steven, let's get to the meat and potatoes of this.
All right.
Training camp battles. All right. Now, this time of year, we don't have a lot to pull from. We don't have, we don't have games. We don't have injury reports. We don't have a lot of stuff. What we do have is rumors and speculation. And we're going to lean into that and give me a training camp battle that you're keeping an eye on that could have some major fantasy implications.
I mean, a pretty obvious one here has to be the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, we're already starting to hear a little bit about them just recently as training camp and rookie camps are opening up here. But the battle between what's going on with Sky Moore and everyone, the recent hype on him, I'm hearing a lot more hype on him. Everyone is loving Kadarius Toney and the potential that he has to offer for this offense. And Rishi Rice, who hasn't had a good start to rookie training camp, but he has a ton of potential as well. So any one of these guys could step up and take that Juju Smith-Schuster role or the second pass catcher behind Travis Kelce. And we saw Juju, have at times when he was healthy, decent success. So if any one of these guys can step up and be that number 2 option for this team here, it's big fantasy success moving forward for one of them.
Yeah, because this team really has been, missing. They missed that Tyreek type player last year. Now, none of these guys are going to be able to truly be a 1-for-1 replacement for him.
Of course.
But somebody easily could be a replacement for Juju. I don't think Juju's this elite specimen that somebody couldn't fill that role very nicely and maybe even improve upon it. Now, if you had one guy out of this group that you would more so like to target than the others in your drafts, is there a guy that you're leaning toward?
Probably in terms of just overall value, probably Sky Moore. I think Kadarius Toney is going too high in a general sense for me, but I feel like Sky Moore is going pretty low overall, especially in like startups or anything like that. Or I think you could get him still relatively cheap. And I know I liked the limited time he had last year on the offense. And I feel like if he can expand that role and maybe take over the slot, I mean, there's a reason why he was picked in rookie drafts in the first round and whatnot last year. He's an exciting player and he can flash with his speed. So he's definitely a guy I'm looking towards trying to get, or at least in general, keeping my eye on a lot more than most of the other ones.
Yeah. So for me, one of the battles that I want to see is it's similar to the Chiefs in the sense of, who's really going to emerge from this group. But I'm watching the Houston Texans. The Houston Texans have tons of wide receivers, but we really don't have any clear indicator as to who's going to step up. Now, we know that Robert Woods is like the veteran presence there. So we know that he's going to be on the field to a certain extent, but who else is going to be out there? They drafted Tank Dell this year. They drafted John Mechie last year. They drafted Nico Collins the year before. A deep dive guy that I like is Xavier
Hutchinson.
I almost said Henderson. Xavier Hutchinson from Iowa State. So there's a lot of really interesting names in that group. And honestly, like I tend to lean toward the guys that were drafted this year for dynasty purposes, because anytime you have a regime change, you never know how they're going to feel about the holdovers. Sometimes those guys stick and they're great and they're just fine. But more often than not, when there's a new GM, when there's a new coach, when there's a whole new, crew in town, they have their certain guys that they want to get touches. They have their certain guys that they want to get on the field. So I'm specifically watching Hutchinson and Tank Dell, even though I think the other two guys might be more talented. I think those two guys are going to have a really interesting shot at some point in the year. We'll have to see if that's early or not. I think Tank Dell has the better shot at the early. Hutchinson, it might be a little bit later with him being such a late draft pick. He's going to have to really earn his way onto the field, but I think that one's a pretty interesting one. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I do like that one. I mean, I don't know if more than one will be fantasy relevant for us this year. I mean, it will depend on how CJ Stroud, progresses during this training camp here, and if he is really the real deal. I like John Mechie still. I liked him as a kind of like a move the chains kind of wide receiver. Mm-hmm. And, everything that happened to him last year, just so unfortunate. But I'm really hoping that he can kind of bounce back, because I feel like he has the size and build to be an NFL wide receiver. And, if it wasn't to everything that happened last year and even the injury before that, he could have potentially have been like a first-round pick in the NFL draft if things went his way. But unfortunately, it didn't. But I'm excited to see what he's able to do this coming season. So,
all right, give me your next training camp battle that you're keeping an eye on.
Oh, it's got to be the Bears running backs. I'm hearing a lot of different things about the Bears situation here. Obviously, Khalil Herbert is likely going to go in as the RB1, likely. He was the guy who's been there the longest, even though we have a whole new regime now. But, he knows the players. He knows some of the, just the players in general sense. But then they brought in Deontay Foreman. They drafted Roschon Johnson. I'm excited to see who steps up and takes over, because each one of them has a great positivity about them. Herbert has been fantastic as a runner so far, very efficient on the ground. Deontay Foreman is a nice bounce back career to his game in the last 2 seasons now, and has another opportunity to be a starting guy again. And then obviously Roschon Johnson, a guy with unlimited potential with minimal usage on his career coming into the NFL. And he has probably the best opportunity to be the passing downs back on his team, because I think he fits that skill set. So I'm interested to see who comes out week 1. I feel like it's not going to be Roschon Johnson. It's going to probably be one of the other two, but I wouldn't be surprised, obviously, by midseason if Roschon takes over this backfield. But it'd be nice if he did it beforehand. So
I'm in the same boat. I'm a big fan of Roschon. I really liked his game. Really liked what I saw on tape. He was a player where there wasn't that one thing that you're like, oh my goodness, that skill is elite. But he had so many of them where you're like, oh man, he's pretty good at that. Oh man, he's pretty good at that. Oh man, he's pretty good at that. He's just a very solid all-around back. So I have a hard time knowing for sure what they're going to do, but I have a really strong feeling that at some point this season, they're going to let Roschon see what he can do as the featured back. You're right. I don't know that it's going to be out of the gate. I think they're going to favor the veterans early on. And part of it might depend on where this team is at. This is a team that was obviously not good last year. They earned the first overall pick, but it's a team that filled a lot of holes in the offseason. They're now in the second year with the same system for their quarterback, third year overall with that quarterback. So I'm really curious to see that team kind of come together this year. But you picked a backfield. I had another backfield, and actually Mr. Bakes-A-Lot called both of these. He finds these as interesting position battles as well. I'm going with the Philly backfield. I have no idea how they're going to make all of this work. They have already been one of the more maddening backfields to try to evaluate in the past. And now in Philly, we've got them trading for DeAndre Swift, which leads me to believe he's the most recent acquisition. Anytime you're trading for a player, you're giving up assets. It's not just like, we signed this guy because we needed depth or what. Like, no, they gave up assets to go out and get DeAndre Swift. and it feels like he fits their mold pretty well. That high-paced offense, like I feel like he would be a great asset there with Hurts, but Penny's no slouch. Penny's a legit player, and especially when he's healthy, and that's always been the issue with him. When he's been healthy, he's been really freaking good. Yeah. He just hasn't been healthy very much, and that's the tough part about Rashad Penny. But then waiting in the wings, Kenneth Gainwell has done nothing but be consistently a solid player for them. And so how is all this going to work? And is during the Giants week, are we going to see Boston freaking Scott again? Like, who knows? So that's one where I'm hoping between the beat reporters and just all of the different things coming out, I hope we get some sort of clarity on what their plan is. If I had to guess today, I'm guessing that they're going to be using Penny a lot between the tackles, first and second down work, but Swift is going to spell him at times, but he's going to be the main passing down back, is kind of my read on the situation. Do you read it similar or no?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of do. This backfield, I feel like it's just going to be a headache all season long because I feel like there's so much potential on both these running backs. And even if you add in Kenny Gainwell there, I mean, it's like we're going to be so focused on the first two, but their injury history is like, oh, well, before midseason, Kenny Gainwell is going to be the guy there. But everyone's going to be so focused on these two and how they get used in this offense here because they're both very efficient when they have the ball in their hands. But again, they just haven't been on the field too often for us.
Yeah, no, it's been tricky. All right, give me one more that you're keeping an eye on. One more training camp battle that you're kind of wanting to see how things shake out.
Yeah, I'm probably going to go back to wide receiver here now and go with the Panthers wide receiver core. I mean, you have Adam Thielen, you have another veteran in DJ Shark, you have another veteran player in Terrence Marshall, and of course you have the rookie pick in the second round, Jonathan Mingo. So I'd like to see who ends up emerging from this offense here. Again, I don't know how well this offense is going to be in year one with Bryce Young, but you have Adam Thielen, who's over the age of 32, 33 years old now. It's hard to imagine that he's going to probably be a day one starter, but it's hard to imagine that, him playing the entire season. So someone else is going to have to step up. So, I liked DJ Shark last year. He kind of, at the end of the season, had a little bit of a kick to his game for fantasy. You have Terrence Marshall, who I wasn't a big fan of, but people seem to like him, and he kind of fits that profile of an NFL wide receiver. And then Jonathan Mingo has tremendous upside in his game there if he can kind of put it all together. So I really want to see who emerges as the starting two next to Adam Thielen, because Adam Thielen is likely going to be the day one starter. But other three young players, I'd like to see who steps up and ends up being in that three wide receiver sets early on.
Yeah, I'm a big Jonathan Mingo guy. I'm trying to remember where I had him pre-draft. I want to say he was my wide receiver 4 pre-draft.
You had him pretty early, I remember.
yeah, I had him pretty high, and I liked a lot of what I saw. Obviously, he was a guy that was more of a traits guy more than a guy that compiled a lot of numbers and stats and things like that. But I would always much rather lean on the traits than the production. So I'm rooting for that kid, and you love it when you get a young receiver and a young quarterback in at the same time. They have time to develop together. Hopefully that's what will happen in this scenario. So for my last one, I took a little bit of a layup in a sense, because this is a training camp battle, but it also there's some injury things kind of weaved into this as well. So it's the whole Trey Lance, Brock Purdy thing. This has huge fantasy implications because Trey Lance, I mean, they moved heaven and earth to move up and acquire this guy. He has tons of physical potential, but in the very, very small sample size that we've seen, he hasn't looked very good. Now, Brock Purdy has also had his own injury issue that he's been dealing with all offseason, but during his time, he looked great. I mean, he did. You could argue that maybe this team is in the Super Bowl instead of the Eagles if he stays healthy in that game. Now, I still think the Eagles probably would have won that one, but it's definitely in the realm of possibility that they could have been a Super Bowl team had Brock Purdy stayed healthy. Now, they've said, from everything they've said, it really sounds like they believe Brock Purdy is their guy. But what happens if it takes him until week 4 to start? And then Trey Lance plays really well those first 3 games. And, like it's this whole thing. And the reason that I felt like this was kind of cheating a little bit is I don't think we're going to get any real clarity in training camp. It's a training camp battle in the sense of we don't know who the quarterback is going to be, but it's not going to be solved in training camp. It's going to be solved once the regular season starts. So I'm a little leery, a little curious as to how all of that's going to play out. Do you have any read on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're thinking is that it's like the race of who's the healthiest by week 1. I feel like that's what the battle is. Who's going to be the healthiest and start week 1? Because like Brock Purdy, I feel like you just keep hearing he's the starter. He's our starter. He's our starter. I mean, if he's healthy, he's going to play. But if he's not healthy and they had to take that gamble and put Trey Lance out there, who apparently is looking better in terms of passing, I mean, if he goes out there and actually does well, they have a situation. And I don't think they want to get into that situation. They want Brock Purdy to be the day 1 starter. I feel like at this point, they've seen Brock Purdy mesh well with this offense. And like you said, they could have been in the Super Bowl. So I think, I think Brock Purdy does get the day 1 start as long as he's healthy. But I don't think they want to throw Trey Lance out there at this point because they don't want to know what if anymore. I think they want to move on at this point. So.
Yeah, it's definitely a very different age as far as quarterback goes because, back in the day, once a guy was drafted, that's their guy and they're going to be developing for the next 5 years. Not anymore. Not anymore. You've got a short shelf life. You better produce or we're on to the next one.
Absolutely. Yeah, Josh Rosen. Come on. 1 year.
Josh Rosen, exactly.
Gone.
See you later. All right. Well, any others that you wanted to touch on real quick? Or are you good?
Just real quick, I guess the Seattle backfield, I'd like to see how that goes and see who ends up being the day 1 starter. Obviously, it seems like Kenneth Walker is going to be that guy, but if Zach Charbonnet comes out in training camp and just lights up everything possible, it could be a real situation where, I mean, I feel like they're going to be both used very heavily, but whoever is actually the real starter, I feel like that's the guy you're going to want early on in your season. So.
Yeah, the touches, how they divvy up the touches are going to be really interesting because I do feel like Kenneth Walker is going to get a larger workload, but I wonder if Charbonnet is going to get the more valuable touches, the receptions and the goal line stuff. And that's what will make this whole thing really, really interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Cool. Well, Coach Stephen P., tell the folks where they can find you on Twitter. I just basically gave it away, but tell the great folks where they can find you on Twitter. And, what are you working on? What are you doing right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, Coach Stephen P on Twitter. You can find me there. Ask me any questions. Things I'm doing right now. Obviously, I'm working with Dynasty Nerds and writing articles for you guys and whatnot. I know I just released a couple team forecast articles. The Titans, the Saints. I have the Dolphins to do next week. I'm also doing some video recordings for my podcast, The Fantasy Coaches. Some kind of player outlook for 2023 on YouTube. They're about like 2-3 minute videos. They're really fun. I've gotten through like 15 or 20 of them already and hoping to get to close to like 75 by the end of the year. So that's over on our YouTube channel. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's fun. Little short segments. So they're really informational. So go check them out. So I appreciate it.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for joining us and we will absolutely have you back again soon.
Absolutely. Thanks, Garret. Appreciate the invite. So
absolutely. We'll see you, buddy.
Take care.
All right. Well, it's thundering. It's lightning over here. But we still have power. Things are still looking good so far. Hopefully that stays true all the way through the show. Before we go to break, though, let me tell you a couple things. One, this is the time to get your trade questions in. I saw some that are already in there, so feel free to get those in. But if you haven't, get your trade questions in. I'll scour through, try to pick all of them if I can get to all of them, but get those in now. Also, want to tell you guys quickly about the Fantasy Alarm Fantasy Football Draft Guide and their All-Pro subscription. Look, their All-Pro subscription has everything you need for this football season. And this football season is going to be an awesome one. So if you want to make sure that you have all the resources, all the information, all the details you need to dominate your leagues, to dominate your drafts, whether that's redraft, whether that's best ball, whether that's dynasty, hopefully it's dynasty. We love dynasty here. Go over to fantasyalarm.com. You get your cheat sheet and your one-stop shop for dominating your drafts. It's digital. It's constantly updating. There's nothing worse than getting something and it's like, well, this is 2 months out of date. This is no good for me. It's constantly being updated with new information. Purchase the draft guide itself or If you don't want to pay the $27, which $27 is absolutely worth it, but you can get it for free with a monthly or annual subscription to Fantasy Alarm. Start your 7-day free trial of Fantasy Alarm All Pro and get immediate free access to the draft guide. All right, we're going to take a quick break. And when we get back, we're going to get to all of your trade questions. See you in a bit.
What can we expect from you out there on the track tonight?
Listen, I have a wife, 2 kids. I have, full-time jobs. I'm never nervous. I don't even know what that word means. Can you explain what nervous means? No. I'm ready to have fun. I've never done anything like this before. I got asked to be a part of this. This is fascinating. Like, it's so cool to just look around and see what goes on here. So I'm just excited to get out on the horse. And you want trash talk? Is that what you're asking me for? No trash talk. I hope everyone does well.
All right. Everyone's going to do well, but it has to be a winner. So give me your trifecta. Who's going to come in first, second, and third? Your heat.
I will go Maria 1, me 2, Willie 3, Moose goes 4th.
Well, it's very simple. I won this event last year. I won my heat, and so the defending champ has to be the favorite. Now, that makes me a little nervous just because I feel like it's hard to repeat. There's a little pressure when you're the favorite, but that being said, I'm still optimistic.
So your heat, it's you,
yes.
Moose and Keith from Better Sports Network, and Willie Colon.
I think Keith might be my stiffest competition, and I asked for this because I actually recruited Keith, if you didn't know. So Keith, if you win, you're welcome.
Malusis is very good. I mean, he knows what he's doing, but I'm going to go with Maria.
Keith is waving to the crowd. He must pay attention because they're off. It's Mark Malusis going for the lead. Maria Marino on the outside, and now Keith Irizarry on the outside with speed. And they're 3 wide into the first turn. Woo! Mark Malusis is locked in for his life. 138 and 2. They're into the stretch. Sportscasters Derby 2. And still in front, Keith Irizarry. And now Mark Malusis is trying to squeeze on through.
Come on! Hey! Come on! Let's go! Come on, kick it!
Yeah! Keith Irizarry. Keith, you did it all the way, wire to wire. Over Mark Malusis.
Awesome! That was so cool!
The champ is here! Keith, what was it like being out there? Adrenaline rush. You were doing the Instagram Live, so there was no panic. You looked cool, calm, collected the whole time, and you won it.
I felt really comfortable. I did. Like, I know you were joking with me before. Are you nervous? Are you whatever? What are you? David, the driver, was awesome. He's like, we're going to win this. I said, all right, let's win this. And he said, let's go. Yeah, I just felt really comfortable. I did. It was fun. We're in the lead. I got Maria Marino on the right side of me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, she's going to beat us, right? And then out of nowhere, you see Moose coming up this way, and we feel him breathing down our neck. And I'm like,
Moose on the loose. Watch out.
Moose was definitely on the loose, and we just got Moose by a neck, a nose, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, but again, all of this for a great cause, and it was absolutely awesome to do this. It was cool.
All right, Keith, congratulations, and no matter what, you could always hold this over Moose's head.
Yeah!
We are back. Thank you to Coach Stephen P for hopping in. And we put the pressure on with that Immaculate Grid. It's hard on its own, but then you add the pressure of having to constantly talk, answer questions, all of that while you're doing it. Tougher than it sounds. All right, let's get to a couple trade questions, and then I had an idea, and I think Tyler's going to do it with me. But we'll get to a couple of these trade questions first, and then if we have some time, I got an idea. But Sober Money asks, would you trade Devontae Smith and Goddard and a second for Stroud and JSN? This is a Superflex PPR league. It's close. But the fact that you get a quarterback in a super flex league, look, I know Stroud isn't as sexy as Anthony Richardson, very similar, kind of on par to a Bryce Young, but you're getting a quarterback and basically the next pick. So you're basically trading Devontae Smith, Goddard, and a second for 104 and 105. And so for me, I think that would absolutely be worth it. I think JSN is going to be a long-term answer. The only reason I wouldn't is if you were counting on Goddard and Smith to win you a ship this year. If you're not counting on those guys to win you a ship this year, then I would take Stroud and JSN. All right. Jeremy Clark says, my team is solid other than running back. I have 424 seconds. I think that's what it says. 424, and so I'm guessing that's seconds. When do I trade for running backs? That is the last piece that I like to trade for. So if your team is solid other than running backs, that means you are at the point where your team could be a legit contender if you were to add a, fill in the blank. Now, you don't have to go for the top end guys. You don't have to go for Breece Hall and Jonathan Taylor, although having those guys on your team is fantastic. I'd love to have Bijan on every single team. You don't have to go for those top end guys. You can go for the Najee Harrises. You can go for even a little bit lower, shorter shelf life, but James Conner. Like, you can go for those kind of players and still be able to be a contender if the rest of your team is good enough. So if you're dealing with seconds, you're probably like the highest range you're going to be able to get is maybe Najee. And you would probably have to give up all 4 of those seconds to get a Najee Harris, which might be worth it. But that's what I would be looking to do. I would be looking to go after Najee Harris, James Conner, Joe Mixon. Miles Sanders would be another one in that range that I would like to go after. Like guys that maybe don't have the long-term outlook or the ceiling that some of the other players have, but short-term could absolutely be in the RB1 conversation. Those are the types of guys that I'm going after. All right, let me scroll back up, get to the rest of these questions here. All right. Sober Money said, I also got a trade offer of T. Higgins, Dallas Goedert, and a 24 second for Tannehill for Stroud and JSN. So they're trying to get Stroud and JSN. So I was looking at it from the other perspective, it looks like. For me, I would probably Tannehill is probably still not going to sway me unless, like I said, unless I'm trying to win now, because I don't think Stroud and JSN are winning me a ship. If I need those pieces to win now, I need T. Higgins, I need Dallas Goedert to win a ship, then I would consider it. But otherwise, I would still rather hold Stroud and JSN. Yeah, I would rather hold those guys. All right. Would you trade this is Mr. Bakes a lot. Would you trade Rondale Moore and a high 24 first for Christian Watson in a super flex IDP tight end premium dynasty league? I would not. If that was a low end, then I would. If we're talking about picks 9 through 12, then I might consider doing that. But I am not trading a 24 first that I think has any shot to be in the top half of the draft. Like, you will have to drastically, and I mean drastically, overpay. Because if I have any shot at Caleb Williams, if I have any shot at Marvin Harrison Jr., if I have any shot at Drake May, like I'm not doing it. So I would hold tight under that 24 first, and I'm going to need somebody to drastically overpay. Like, I need somebody to come to me with, instead of Christian Watson, I need somebody to come to me with like Garrett Wilson for me to start, looking at that. Chris Olave, like that's the range where I would start even considering it. But if I think there's a real chance it's the 101, you're having to trade a ridiculously high asset for me in order to get it. All right. Jared Frederick says 105, 110, 202, and Elijah Moore in a Superflex PPR league for 101. I'm assuming this is in 2023, since you're giving me specific picks. I would do it. I would. I think, look, it's tricky because 105 is more than likely going to be Gibbs. And so Gibbs is a really good player. But if I just have to give 110, 202, and Elijah Moore to go from Gibbs to Bijan, I think that gap is still big enough where I would be willing to do it. So I would be willing to make that deal. He says he also has 102 and 107. So you're still getting Anthony Richardson, and you're still getting a good receiver like Addison, Flowers, maybe Kincaid there at tight end. So absolutely like it. All right. Bubba Zig says, who's starting for the Buckeyes? I'm assuming, at quarterback. Who? That is a good question. Who's going to start for the Buckeyes at quarterback? Honestly, I'm leaning McCord, but I don't know. I really don't. It's going to be an interesting training camp battle to figure out who's going to end up being the starter. So I'm leaning McCord, but I don't really know for sure yet. And honestly, I've been so NFL focused that I haven't spent a lot of time looking at that position battle. So I'll definitely have to go back and do that. I missed Stephen F's question here. I did a trade of, I'm assuming, of MT, which is Michael Thomas, I'm guessing, and 303 for Keenan Allen, current defending champ. I'm high on Michael Thomas, but already have Olave. Did I give up too much? I can't tell. Oh, yeah. Did you give up too much to get Keenan Allen? No, I don't think you gave up too much. Michael Thomas, we know roughly what Keenan Allen's going to give you. If Michael Thomas gives you exactly what Keenan Allen gave you, you're thrilled. But that's a really big if. And so to play it safe and only have to give a third-round pick to play it safe there, I think that's absolutely worth it. Stephen F says, are you a Young or Stroud guy? I found some interesting data that leans heavily one way. In the last 30 years, there have been 8 instances where quarterback went 1 and 2. The only combo where 2 had the better career is 1999 with McNabb over Couch. You're trying to hurt my feelings there with the Couch thing, but whatever. That is an interesting point. It's an odd antidote because is that prescriptive or is it a descriptive stat? In the sense of like, is it telling you what is going to happen, or is it just telling you like that's the oddity on how the data seemed to fall so far? I'll be honest, I had Stroud slightly better pre-draft. Honestly, if I had 10 drafts, I'm taking 5 one time and 5 the other. I think Stroud is a little safer in the sense of more prototypical size, crazy accurate, but Bryce Young has a lot of those intangibles. I think he's seems to be the more intelligent, and I don't know that for a fact. So I don't want to discount what CJ Stroud is able to do there, but it's a coin flip for me. I lean Stroud. I love really accurate quarterbacks, but I could go either way on that. Mr. Bakes a lot. What's Bijan's worth? Is he worth 3 mid to late 24 first? As long as I don't think those picks are going to be in the top 5, then absolutely. Easily worth those 3 first, 100%. All right, let's get Tyler on here because what we're going to do, I'm going to have him pull up the crossover grid. So it's the same concept, but it's not the official Immaculate Grid from Pro Football Reference. So I'm going to have Tyler bring that up, and him and I are going to do this together. Now, I did see this one earlier today because I sent it over to him. I think this one is slightly easier.
Okay.
Because you get 2 stat ones. I think stat ones are easier personally, but I'm a stats guy.
Okay. So I will say this, only because it's the first day for the Pro Football Reference one. The Pro Baseball Reference one usually does 2 stat columns. So
do they? Okay.
Yeah. So they'll probably switch that over to football, like Heisman Trophy winner who was a 1,000-yard receiver or something like that.
Gotcha.
Yeah, they'll get that eventually. But for day one, not too bad. Well done.
Not too bad. Not too bad. All right. So let's start here. For me, there's a few easy ones, but it's because I'm a Browns fan, so that helps. The top 10 picks, I think all of those are pretty easy, honestly.
I think they are as well. Now, you are a Browns fan. I'm a Falcons fan. I'm very curious to see who you're thinking of for this first box, because I already have mine set. So I'm very curious to see who you're thinking.
See, all right. So for the Browns Falcons one, I didn't think through this one much yet, to be honest. I'm trying to think. I know we recently got one of your defensive linemen. But yeah, I haven't really given it a good thought. Who do you have?
So you did for a second. If I remember correctly, I think Tack McKinley had like a cup of coffee.
McKinley, yep. He was the one that I was thinking.
Yeah. But I think, and I'm just going to put it in.
Do it.
I have to go Alex Mack.
Oh, Alex Mack's a great one. Yeah. Center for the Browns for a long time, then went there. Yeah.
Pretty sure that's not the right. I don't know if
that
is
right, not Alex Mack. There's a reason that this is not the official one.
Yeah, I was like, I'm pretty sure it's not Alex Mack, but that's okay.
Alex Mack's a little bit lighter.
Yeah.
Also in the movie Draft Day, Alex Mack makes an appearance.
Does he really?
Yeah, he's the one. He's like working out and he's doing the hand clings, and the conditioning coach is like, "Yeah, great job, man." Blah, blah, blah.
I did not notice that was Alex Mack. I'm gonna have to go back and rewatch that.
I'm pretty sure.
Okay,
I'm pretty sure it's him. I'll have to go back and double check, but I'm like 95% sure. All right. So the Browns top 10 draft pick. The easy ones are like Tim Couch, Joe Hayden, Myles Garrett.
Myles Garrett, yeah.
Courtney Brown is probably a little bit slightly more obscure.
Okay.
But I'm going to go really obscure. So it wasn't the first year. It wasn't the second year. It was the third year the Browns returned. And I believe it was the number 3 overall pick, Gerard Warren, defensive lineman.
Gerard Warren. I have no idea how to spell that.
Just go Warren, Warren.
Let's see. Gerard Warren. Okay, that works. Personally, I was thinking Trent Richardson. I think people forget that he was drafted by Cleveland, top 10.
Yep.
I don't.
What's the percentage on that? I'm curious. Does it say?
I have no idea. I don't think Crossover does the percentage.
Oh, they don't? Oh, dang it.
So, but I can tell you that's definitely an obscure one. I
felt good about that one.
I cannot remember if he was a top 10 pick. But, and you know what? He may have been in that Trent Richardson draft, in which case he wasn't. But I don't know why Brandon Weeden kept like coming back to me.
So he was in the same class, but he was in the 20s.
Okay, so he wasn't 20s. Okay, because I remember Manziel being in the 20s, but I don't know if Weeden was in the 20s. So okay, you're right.
Yeah, actually, right. Brady Quinn, Brandon Weeden, and Johnny Manziel were all taken, I believe, with the exact same pick at pick 22.
Wow, I'm gonna have to go back and double check that, but that's a fun fact right there.
Isn't that random? Like three.
It's not a good fun fact. Yeah, not a good fun fact, but it's a fun fact.
No, very cool. All right. Next one, I think the top 10 for Miami Dolphins is pretty easy as well. Like we could do the layup with Tua, Dan Marino. Do we want to go more obscure? Just take the layups.
Okay, hold on. Dan Marino was in the late 20s.
Oh, he wasn't. He was in the 20s.
Yeah, he was in the late 20s. He was the 6th quarterback taken in that 80.
Yeah, because Jim Kelly was ahead of him. John Elway was the first one.
So if I remember correctly, it's John Elway, Jim Kelly, Ken O'Brien, Todd Blackledge, and who's number 5? Oh, it's escaping me at the moment. Jim Kelly, John Elway, Todd Blackledge, Dan Marino, and there's a 5th one. I think I said Ken O'Brien.
Yeah.
There's a 5th one in there, but he was the 6th one taken.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. No, good call. Because I just like off the top of my head, I was like, oh yeah, he was a top pick.
You would assume that he was a top pick because he was just that good. Yeah. Second year making the Super Bowl winning MVP, but
All right. So 2 is the layup.
2 is the layup. There is one that is forgotten. Jake Long.
Jake Long would work. Yep.
Jake Long is up there.
He was the number 1 overall pick.
Yes, he was. And it's not very frequent that the Dolphins have a top 10 pick.
Right.
At least, and definitely not a top 5. So I think if you want to go a little obscure, I think Jake Long is
Long's probably the better one. Let's go with Long.
Long. And that's Jack Long. Hold on. That's wrong. Jake Long. There we go. Also, totally remembered the sixth quarterback taken in that draft was Tony Eason. That's right.
Wow, good name. I would not have.
Yeah.
I would not have ever gotten that one.
Great 30 for 30. If you haven't seen it, the Elway to Marino one. Great 30 for 30.
I did, but it's been at least 6-7 years since I've seen it.
I've probably seen it 5 times. It's one of my favorites.
I love it. Love it.
Yeah, it's funny because I've learned all my NFL history and a lot of my baseball history from 30 for 30s and from a ton of YouTube. Like that's how I know all this stuff. So yeah, shout out to my dad for all the DVDs he had when I was a kid too.
All right. So top 10 pick with an 11 touchdown receiving season. I mean, there's a lot of routes we could go here. Do you have a favorite? Like,
I'm like 99% sure he was over 11 touchdowns, but I think Calvin Johnson is a
Megatron is the easiest one that I thought of too. Jamar Chase, I think, already hit over 11 as well. So he would be eligible.
I don't know if he hit over 11, but
I know for sure Megatron did. He led the league one time with 18. So I know for sure he did.
So that'll work.
That'll absolutely work. Was Larry Fitzgerald a top 10 pick?
No, he was like number 3 overall. I don't know if he's scored more than 11 or more though. That's my.
I know he had a ridiculous reception total numbers.
Yeah,
let's just go Megatron. Let's play it safe. We'll go Calvin Johnson.
Cool, that works.
All right, I got a good one for Browns, San Francisco.
I'm curious if it's the same person I'm thinking of, but go ahead.
Jeff Garcia.
Yes, exactly the same person I was thinking of, Jeff Garcia.
That's awesome.
I think it shows more. That is an awful picture of Jeff Garcia. My God. But I think it shows more the ineptitude of the 2000s Brown coaching staff because Jeff Garcia leaves San Francisco. He has great years in San Francisco.
Fantastic.
Leaves to Cleveland, gets cut before the season, and then takes 2 other teams, being Philly and Tampa, to the playoffs after Cleveland. It just shows how bad the Browns were back then. They were terrible.
The front office ineptitude will never cease to amaze me. Never, ever.
Yeah, it's bad. Okay,
real quick, what a random Falcon / Brown that I'm trying to remember if he actually played for the Falcons or not. Did Derek Anderson ever go there? I know he was with Carolina. Did he ever go to the Falcons or no?
I don't think so. I could look that up really quick on my phone.
I don't think he did. But
let's see. Derek Anderson. Derek Anderson, American football player. Nope, that's a basketball player. Never mind. There's like 3 Derek Andersons that pop up immediately.
Generic white guy name.
Yeah. Okay, here he is. Derek Anderson, Sports Pro Football Reference. Here we go. And he played for Cleveland, Arizona, Carolina, and then one last year with Buffalo.
All right. So he never made it to Atlanta. For some reason, I saw him in that jersey, but I couldn't remember for sure. All right. So we got 4 squares left. 2 of them are probably going to be pretty easy for you as a Falcons fan. But I'm blanking on the 11 touchdowns. Like, I know Julio did have 1 double-digit season, but I don't know if it was 10 or 11.
I think it was 10. Julio was not known for scoring touchdowns because he wanted other dudes to get the ball.
Did Tony Gonzalez ever?
I thought about that. I don't know. Roddy White, I think, did. If I want to go old, I think Andre Rison did. Those are the 2 that come to mind. If I want to go really old, but I don't know if they were really doing it all back then. I mean, like Billy White Shoes Johnson was great.
Oh, wow. That's a good call.
Yeah, that's an old school call. I mean, when you're doing a dance like that, how can you? And your name is White Shoes.
White Shoes.
How can you forget that name? Awesome. I'm gonna save that for last.
Andre Rison.
I thought about that.
I mean, there's got to be somebody. It's the category, so somebody had to have had 11.
I'll tell you what. Let's save this for last because if we're gonna go out, I want to go out on that one.
All right, that sounds good. And Dynasty Hot Sauce, absolutely. Let me know. be happy to hop on your podcast. All right. So Falcons, Dolphins. You got somebody for that?
Falcons, Dolphins, I'm thinking of, and I just came to mind, Brent Grimes.
Oh, there you go. That's a good one.
Yeah, one of the better backs that we had for a long time, and then we just got rid of him in his prime. Don't know why. But yeah, so I remember that. And that's the only one that really comes to mind at the moment. I'm sure there's been plenty of other ones, but that's the only one I can think of.
Okay. Hey, it fits. So we're good.
Yeah, it fits. We'll take it.
All right. Jerry Rice is the layup for the 11 touchdown single season.
Yeah, that's easy. I think T.O. is another pretty
T.O., I'm pretty sure he did during his San Francisco run as well.
See, Jerry Rice. Okay, that works. Dolphins, Niners.
All right. This one's tough.
Does Mike McDaniel fit in the slot? Probably not.
Probably.
Yeah, I think it's players.
Did he bring any? Oh, he brought a bunch of players with him, though. Jeff Wilson, Raheem Mostert.
Raheem Mostert's another one.
Yeah.
Think. Well,
as soon as you said that, I was like, he brought a ton of players with him. This is easy.
I'm trying to think. Were there any old school dudes that would have went over? Probably. Was Frank Gore ever a Dolphin?
There are. What?
Was Frank Gore ever a Dolphin?
Frank Gore was a Dolphin at one point. Frank Gore will fit with half of these.
Yeah, it's true. Also, honest opinion, I think maybe the most underrated running back ever. The dude's third in all-time yardage, and nobody talks about him.
He was the one that I typically go to for the most underrated, Hall of Fame level player. But at the same position, Curtis Martin is another one that people never talk about. But he's up there on that list too. And he just put out 1,200 yard season after 1,200 yard season.
I completely agree. And while we're in the era of Curtis Martin, I also feel that Corey Dillon did not get enough respect for being a running back. Him and now I'm going to go on a tangent. Him and one other dude who, in my opinion, absolutely belongs in the Hall of Fame, put Fred Taylor in the Hall of Fame. I don't know how he's not in, and it bugs me.
Yeah, no, he was a very good running back.
All right. I think we're gonna go Andre Rison.
Is Andre Rison the best bet?
I think Roddy might be a little bit of a better bet, but because some of those early '90s Falcons teams went to the playoffs,
right?
So someone had to be catching those balls,
right? So but a lot of that was Jamal Anderson, and
that was late '90s.
That's true. That was late '90s.
Yeah. Rison was gone by then. And now that you say that,
Rison.
It's now that you say that, I automatically think of Tim Dwight for some reason, and I'm like, I don't know. We're gonna go Andre.
Was that big white guy? Is that who Tim Dwight?
He was 83. He was a small little white dude, but he was good. He could run. Not Andre Rison.
Andre Rison.
Okay, cool. We're good. We are solid on that. Okay,
perfect grid. Look it up.
We did pretty good on that.
We did pretty darn well. We there were some layups on there, but there were some slightly more obscure ones. Gerard Warren up there.
Yeah, I think Brent Grimes is a good obscure one.
Brent Grimes is.
Jeff Garcia for sure. That's definitely an obscure Alex Mack up there. That's not him.
Yeah, that's the most obscure Alex Mack I've ever seen.
I have no idea who that is. I don't know if there was another
really a Packer.
Yeah, I don't know if there was a former Packer named Alex Mack and they just got the pictures confused.
Maybe
that's hilarious. That's so funny to me.
Oh my gosh, Alex Mack. Whoop. Not the official one. All right. Well, thanks, Tyler. Appreciate you hopping on doing this. This was fun to do.
No problem, man.
All right, everybody. Thank you, Tyler. Appreciate him. Show him some love. Look at a guy that can produce and come on the show like an all-star. This guy's a champ. Love it. All right. Any other questions before we move on and we get Dennis Bennett on here? I don't want to miss anyone's question, so I'm scrolling through. Make sure I did not miss anyone's question. All right. I don't think so. All right. Before we go to break, let me remind you guys again about Fantasy Alarm in the fantasy football draft guide. Look, you can buy the draft guide. You can. $27, more than worth it. I guarantee your league entries are more than $27. So if you want to help make sure you win those leagues, that draft guide is more than worth it. But even Better, even better, you can get it for absolutely free with a monthly or annual all-pro subscription to Fantasy Alarm. Start your free 7-day trial of Fantasy Alarm All-Pro and get immediate free access to the draft guide. Today, DeFork said, last week did part of you and wanted to say adios right after Matt did, so as to copy him again. Absolutely. All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, the man of the hour, Dennis Bennett, will be joining us. We'll see you in a sec.
Breece Hall right now, and I've talked to plenty of high-stakes players, I'm sure you have too, Kev. Had Hall not torn his ACL last year, he might have been the 101 in drafts this year. That's how good he was looking last year, and obviously with the addition of Aaron Rodgers. At the 305, running back 11 behind Derrick Henry and Ramondre Stevenson, right ahead of Jahmyr Gibbs and Najee Harris. Your thoughts on him as a mid-third round pick? How have you been attacking him? Have you been getting him at that spot so far this year?
Yeah, if I start out with 2 wide receivers, Breece Hall is right at the top of the queue coming into the third. If I knew he'd be healthy for week 1, I was still a little.
Well, he'd be going higher than the mid third.
Right. He may go 101 or well, RB1 at least.
Yeah.
But I don't think we know that even if he's healthy in spring and the summer.
Mm-hmm.
I still like if I'm running a team, if I'm the coach, I'm bringing him back slow. Like he's on a pitch count. Like I want him for the end of the season because I got Aaron Rodgers for the playoffs, right? Like even if he's fully healthy, I would work him in slow. But that is actually what you want. Like he's still going to get the high value touches. So yeah, if we know he's healthy, he's a first rounder. So like if he's sitting there in the third, especially when I get 2 wide receivers to start, I'll take Hall all day.
Yeah, it almost makes you think that the uncertainty with Breece Hall has made him unfairly fall too far, right? Like because we're talking about the team here in June. They're still hoping that he's ready for week 1. This is not, oh, we'll see what happens. Oh, we're taking it day by day. Oh, we're liking how he's coming along. No, they still think by week 1. And the fact that we have that timeline, I think, maybe bumps him up, especially as the drafting season gets deeper and deeper here in July and August. Maybe we start seeing him go up the boards as well.
Welcome back in Dynasty Nerd Show. I am your host, Garret Price, and we are now joined by the man that we see every single week because he's too good looking, Dennis Bennett. How's it going, buddy?
Like a fine wine, I'm getting better with age.
You're looking good, my man. You're looking good.
My Scott Fishbowl Grader shirt on.
Dennis, you losing some weight? You're looking thin over there, man.
Well, I changed the lighting.
Maybe that's what it is.
I went on a diet. It's called Buy Bigger Clothes.
All right. Well, Dennis, I don't know if you caught our last segment.
I have. I've been trying to figure out this game. I didn't know. I'm like, oh no, a new game that I've never heard of. What's going on?
Well, Dennis, I'm hoping to pull upon your great knowledge from, your years of playing fantasy football. That's what I'm hoping to get. Players that I am not familiar with that you can pull out of thin air. So we can either do the one that you just saw, that's the crossover grid, or it's the exact same grade. We can do the Immaculate Grid. You have a preference?
I don't. My question is it we just have to get fill all the things without missing any, or
that's
do you
the goal.
Get a better score if you have somebody that is a lower percentage used?
Yes, both are true. So
okay.
Your goal is to get them all right. But if you get players that are more obscure, you get better, like a higher score.
Okay.
All right. So let's do the Immaculate one. That's what Tyler's saying, since we will get the percentages with it. So let's pull up the Immaculate Grid here. And I'm going to have to make this full screen so I make sure I can see everything. All right. So we need to get players with 1,000-yard receiving seasons. We need to get crossovers between like Vikings and Chiefs, Falcons and Niners. We got to do all of this. So the only caveat that I said is we can't pick players that we picked earlier on in the show with Steven. So it's going to be even extra challenging for us. So I'll do my best to try to remember which ones we picked. But we got 7 out of 9. We missed 2.
Okay.
So that's how we did. So let's start with the 1,000-yard receivers because I feel like that's probably the easier of all of the options.
So when I saw Philadelphia Eagles and 1,000-yard receivers being old, I went to the 70s. And
okay.
Because like one of my favorite wide receivers ever played for the Eagles in the 70s. And so I'm like, oh, can this guy be one? And, because that's why I love Donald Parham, because they were very physically similar.
Okay.
And so like Harold Carmichael is where I went. His running mate, Harold Jackson, was a little guy, but Carmichael was 6'7", big old wide receiver. Ron Jaworski was his quarterback, the Polish rifle.
Jaws.
And so I'm like, and then I thought, well, wait, that's the 70s. What was it, 14 games? Maybe they didn't throw the ball enough to get 1,000
That's what I was going to ask. Did he cross that 1,000-yard threshold?
Well, if I cheated, I could tell you the answer. And then my next one was like, what about Mike Quick? I think didn't he play with Randall Cunningham? He was more like in the 80s, 90s, more 90s maybe.
Well, and that made me think of Chris Carter, but Chris Carter wasn't nearly as successful with the Eagles as he was with the Vikings.
Well, looking at the Vikings and Eagles, the crossover one there, to me, that was I went quickly to Chris Carter.
Chris Carter. All right, let's put Chris Carter in there. We'll take that layup there. That's a good one because we went with Randall Cunningham last time.
I mean, they played together in both places, so.
Oh, wait, that's wrong. We got to file a complaint here.
Yeah, Chris Carter definitely played for the Eagles.
Chris Carter absolutely played for both. Tyler said, wait, hold on. He said he hit the wrong one. Okay. Oh, because but he didn't play from 11 to 17.
I got it. CRISCARTER.
All right. He's going to refresh it. While he does, let's go back to the 1,000-yard receiver. So we'll not do Carmichael because we want to keep it on the up and up.
Right.
So we'll leave him out of it. We did A.J. Brown last time. We could easily do Devontae Smith. We know for sure he did it. He would be the layup. I'm assuming Terrell Owens did during his time.
Yeah, I think so. And I'm pretty sure that Mike Quick did as well. He had a stretch, and I think I feel like it was in the 90s because I think it was around when I first started playing. When I first started playing fantasy, I remember Quick playing, and it feels like he had a 3 or 4 year stretch where he was putting up a lot of yards, a lot of points.
Yeah, I could see that as being true. I don't know that one as certainly, but the other two that came to mind for me were Deshaun Jackson, and Jeremy Maclin.
Yeah, I would bet both of those do.
Okay, I'll trust you if you're very confident and Quick. I feel like he will be the higher rarity, so we'll go Quick if you're very confident. If not, let's go Maclin.
I feel like I'm 90% there.
All right, let's go Quick then. So when he comes back, we'll get Quick on there, and then we'll do Chris Carter for the Viking/Eagle. Yeah, that's a good one. Only 3%. Good work, Dennis. There we go. All right. So we've got
I'm
two
surprised
guys.
Carter only had 14%. It would seem like Randall Cunningham must be at like 80%. What was his percentage?
It was only 20 something. So
wow.
I'm curious what the other ones are. I know people said McNabb was also an option. Yeah, that's interesting. Jalen Reagor, yeah, because he's recent. That would make sense. All right. Kansas City Chiefs. we used Dwayne Bowe the first time around. Now, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill are the current layup guys that we could choose. But Tony Gonzalez, that is another option that I think is fairly obvious, but might get slightly less just because he's a little bit older. But Dennis, you got any old school gems for us?
Like the only Hall of Famer Otis Taylor, but I don't know. Like he was in the 70s. Taylor was maybe even back into the late 60s. I forget what years that Otis Taylor played, but he was an all-pro. But I don't know. Again, it comes down to it was a 14-game season. Did they throw it enough? He had Len Dawson at quarterback for part of his career. I don't know. I don't remember who succeeded Dawson because Chiefs weren't great back then. And then it's just like the Chiefs just kind of faded away. Like when I think Chiefs, I think Willie Lanier because I love that big burly linebacker wearing number 63 middle linebacker. Ed Podolak because, he had just this weird ass name. But
I'm guessing Dante Hall never did because he was more of a returner than a receiver.
He was a returner. Gosh, who? I would have to go with, the more recent guys. I think
just to play safe.
Tony Gonzalez, Kelce. I'm sure probably has a lot of people have him.
Yeah, I'm guessing him and Hill. So let's go Tony Gonzalez. We'll go Tony Gonzalez for the 1,000-yard receiving season there. And then for Falcons, I mean, we didn't use Andre Rison earlier. So I think Andre Rison would probably fit the trying to get the low percentage guys better than Julio Jones, obviously. Calvin Ridley's a recent one that would fit. Anybody else that you are kind of thinking of other than the obvious ones?
No, of those guys, because Roddy White. So let's see, what was
Roddy was who we ended up going with last time.
They had the stretch of Roddy White to Julio Jones to Calvin Ridley.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember who played back when Bartkowski was the quarterback.
We found out that Peerless Price did not do it.
Yeah, I would have probably not guessed Peerless Price. To me, I think I would take the layup here because if we're it seems like the 1,000-yard receiving is like the easier category.
Right.
And so I want to make sure I get those right. If I'm playing, listening to you guys on the Talking Dynasty podcast and you're talking game theory, I think in a situation like this, you got to take your layups when they're there.
All right, let's go, Julio. Let's take the layup.
If you're cherry picking, you're down there by yourself. You don't want to kick it out to 3 when the other 5 guys are coming down to play defense just because, Steph might make it and you're ahead by 20, All
right. So we did Julio. We took the layup. Now's where it gets tricky. Now's where it gets difficult. Let's stick on the Viking side of things. A Viking and a Chief. Somebody that played for both the Vikings and the Chiefs. Got any old school names in there that would have fit? It helped me sometimes to think of guys that played for a lot of teams because you have better odds at that. But I'm struggling to think of Chiefs that have played for a ton of different teams.
Yeah, and it's I heard you guys talk about Jared Allen earlier.
Yeah.
And
Nick Foles, I know he played for the Chiefs, but I don't think he ever played for the Vikings.
No, he played for the Bears, but I don't think he played for the Vikings. Oh.
I'm trying to think of I
think you guys, let's see, Vikings, you guys said McKinnon earlier too.
We did. We said McKinnon.
Who did you guys end up using?
For which one?
For the Vikings and the Chiefs.
That was one of the ones we got wrong.
Oh.
That was one of the ones we got wrong. So we didn't get it last time either. So I'm not holding out crazy amounts of hope.
Well, why wouldn't we use Jared Allen if you guys already talked through it, or is it
well,
because
we're trying to do ones that we didn't say?
Am I not allowed to use? Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
we're trying to not do the ones that were mentioned in the process.
All right. I'll do better. Now you got me like scrambling for offensive linemen.
Right? And that's the tricky part with all of this is like trying to remember obscure guys that might have played most of their career in one place, but then played a season or two at the other one.
Yeah, because this
Tyler said he's willing to give us some hints if we want those.
Yeah, give me a hint.
All right, give us a hint, Tyler. He's working on it. He said think 90s QBs. For which one? Or for many of them? All right. 90s QBs. He said for Minnesota, KC. All right. 90s quarterbacks. Randall Cunningham. Did Warren Moon ever play for the Chiefs? I know he played.
He played for the Oilers for a long time, and then he went up to Seattle, and then he bounced around at the end.
I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know on that one.
He was a backup.
I'll take Culpepper. Culpepper never played for the Chiefs, right?
No, Culpepper was the Dolphins and the Vikings. I don't think he played anywhere other than that. And Moon would be more 80s, I think. I don't know. Maybe he got into the 90s. So we're Chiefs and Vikings. Let's see, quarterbacks. Who are some of the Viking quarterbacks?
All I can think of is Cunningham and Moon and Culpepper. Trying to think of other like obscure ones.
Like who was in this?
Who was the guy that did? Maybe that was Tampa Bay. I'm thinking of Johnson.
Brad Johnson. Yeah, that was.
But he played for
Vikings, Tampa, and Baltimore, I think.
Okay. All right. He said 80s and 90s. Think 80s and 90s. So maybe that is Warren Moon.
Yeah. Well.
Are there any other 80s quarterbacks that you can think of for the Vikings?
No, not off because there was Fran Tarkington was into the 70s. I think he made it to the 80s because it seems like he played for.
All right. Well, let's hold off on this one, and we'll use that as like our last one if we need it. All right. What about Falcons and Vikings? I'm trying to think like where else did like Algie Crumpler play? I know he played a couple other places.
So I feel like Crumpler is right, but I don't know if I'm confusing him with his brother Carl Lester. Because there's two Crumpler brothers. They're both tight ends. So Algie was in
Atlanta for sure. I remember that.
Let's see. I think Crumpler was. I think he did.
All right, let's risk it.
Yeah, let's risk it.
All right, let's risk it. Algie Crumpler, Vikings,
Falcons.
No, we're wrong.
Oh, dang.
We failed. All right. I did think of one, and we did not talk about it, but I'm trying to remember if I saw it in the chat, and that's why I'm thinking of it now, or if I actually thought of it. So I'm going to go back through the chat and make sure I'm not cheating.
Oh, Brett Favre?
No, it wasn't Brett Favre. It was for the next one. It was for one of the other ones. It was Niners, Chiefs, and I was like, oh, yeah, Joe Montana. But I'm trying to see if somebody said that one or not.
Oh.
Because someone might have said it, and that's why I'm thinking of it. Oh, well, now I also just saw Warren Moon did play for KC. So that would have been the other one. All right. We gotta stop. We gotta take some risks, do our 4 shots, because I don't think we're doing too good, Dennis. And I don't want people to just suffer.
Can we so you've used up all the good Eagles and 49ers. You talked about T.O., Jeff Garcia. See,
Yep.
Did he play for the Eagles too?
Yeah, he did.
You guys talked about him. see, Chiefs and Niners. You talked about Alex Smith, Joe Montana.
Let's just pick random players that we think have like any sort of shot, because I don't want everybody waiting on us forever, just going, well,
So, Rising
take a shot in the dark at the pick one that you want and just take a shot in the dark.
Oh man, a shot in the dark.
Shot in the dark, just from the hip.
Oh, who was the Falcons tackle? Sam Baker. He played for 2 or 3 teams after he left Atlanta. I don't think it was Minnesota, Kansas City, or Philly.
They did have a big tackle in more recent years. That did end up playing for a couple other teams, and he was like a highly drafted guy. Like he was a top 10 pick.
Yeah, I think that was Sam Baker. It probably would have been about 15 years ago, because I think he only played about 9 years because he developed a hip issue.
Okay, I was thinking of somebody different. It was like Mick something.
Oh, Mick.
I don't know. All right, we can go with Sam Baker. Let's shoot for it.
I don't think it's right. I don't think he matches any of the other teams though.
Oh, okay.
I was just grabbing names for the teams,
just grasping at straws,
trying to make sure we don't have too much dead air.
Did he said Baker for which one? I don't think Baker fits any of these.
Yeah, he played for the Falcons, but I don't think he played for any of the other teams. Falcons and Vikings. Did Andrew Sendejo, the defensive back, play for the Falcons and Vikings?
Maybe. I know he did the Vikings. I thought he played for the Chiefs. And so I actually tried that one. So let's shoot for it. Falcons and Vikings, Sendejo. Nope.
God damn it.
All right. What other teams did Colin Kaepernick end up playing for? Did he end up playing for anybody else, or was it only the Niners?
Only the Niners, I think.
Yeah,
he had some tryouts, but
yeah,
I don't think he had any. Journeyman quarterbacks. I'm drawing blanks on even who journeyman quarterbacks are.
Josh Freeman. What teams did Josh Freeman play for?
See, he started out in Tampa.
Josh Johnson's played for half the NFL. There's got to be a crossover here.
Josh Johnson.
He's played for literal 15 or 16 teams. There's got to be a crossover here.
I feel if Johnson is crossing over, it would be Falcons and Vikings.
All right, Falcons, Vikings, Josh Johnson. Let's go for it. Oh, we were wrong again. Dennis, we're doing terrible. To be fair, this is a second time through. We would have gotten some of the easy layups had it not been the second time through.
Man, I feel like Falcons and Niners should have produced something.
Sedated Fork said any kickers. That's a good thought. We got a Grammatica or something like that.
So I feel like, Martin Grammatica played for Tampa.
Who's the Falcons kicker that was one of the all-time leaders in points?
Was that Martin Anderson?
Yeah, Anderson. Did he ever play for the Chiefs? Oh, that one we don't even need that crossover. Did he play for the Niners or Vikings? He might have played for the Vikings, actually.
Yeah, let's try that one.
Mort Anderson, baby. Give it to me. Give it to me. Yeah. We got one, Dennis. 10%. 10% rarity on that one. All right. If we get this one right, we at least get a third of these. All right. We gotta work really hard not to look dumb here. I'm thinking there's gotta be more Philly Niner crossovers.
Philly and Niners. I mean, gosh, if I had just a list of random players.
Oh yeah, it would be so much easier.
Teams, it would make it even a little bit easy.
Yeah, it would make it so much easier. All right. Do you want me to just start listing random Philadelphia Eagles?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Deshaun Jackson, Jeremy Maclin, LaShawn McCoy.
Wait, so McCoy played for the Chiefs and the Eagles. That one doesn't line up.
Oh, dang it. Okay. Donovan McNabb, Brent Selleck. I mean, I could name a lot of current guys. More old school guys. Chris Carter.
We already used.
We already did. We literally have him on here. Jeez, who was that running back? Bryce, was it Bryce Brown? He was a running back that was like a highly rated recruit.
Yeah,
I know he played for the Eagles. Did he go anywhere else?
You know, he didn't do anything. I'm sure he went a couple places, but he just didn't do anything because of injuries. Gosh, who were, let's see, who were Shanahan running backs? Because it's like he would plug in, they would plug anybody in. That might be.
All right. Heavy T says he's going to give us the Philly San Francisco one if we want it. Do we want to throw in the towel?
Yeah, let's take it.
All right, give it to us. Oh, awesome. I forgot that he even played there. If it would have been Raiders and Eagles, I would have got that one. I forgot that he even went there. All right. What other ones are out there to fill this out, Tyler? We'll see what he says. That's a good one. Cordero Patterson.
Yeah.
For Atlanta, Minnesota. Gosh dang it. How did I not think of that one? That's a current one. I'm ashamed of myself. I'm embarrassed.
Talk about being a journeyman. Oh, where'd Ted Ginn play?
Ted Ginn started he was with the Niners at one point. Started in Oakland. I feel like he was with the Titans at one point, but maybe that's just because that's where all old receivers go.
Yeah, I think he was in New Orleans. So yeah, I don't think he was in Kansas City or Atlanta. So
Darius Hayward Bay.
So he started at the Raiders.
Defunct wide receivers. All right. Let's get to our next one here, Dennis, where we get to look a little bit smarter. Players we are not leaving drafts without. So these might not necessarily be top tier guys. I don't know if yours are top tier guys or not. The first or second round, you don't really get to make that decision on your own. The rest of the league decides it for you. But once you start getting to the later rounds, there's those guys where it's like, I gotta walk away with this guy, whether it's he always seems to be too cheap or you just really like him or whatever. So what's one guy that you are just not leaving your drafts without?
So I approach this from like, where am I drafting at?
Okay.
And so if I'm at the back end of the first, I decided I went with an early round guy. I went with a guy with a early second round ADP.
Okay.
Because I felt like I'm going to need to grab him in the first if I want him, probably.
Okay.
So in the Superflex ADP, Garrett Wilson's ADP is 203. I don't know if I would risk him coming back to me. So I'll take him at the 110. He's my wide receiver 3 in Dynasty. I love Garrett Wilson. Last year he was 6th in routes run, 675 routes on an awful team. 10th in red zone targets. And these are players, I use 75 targets to filter it out. And I just want to shout out, I'm using the new Fantasy Points data suite for a lot of these stats because it's phenomenal. I don't know if you've looked at it.
I haven't checked it out yet.
Dude, it's nice. It's really nice. He was 10th in red zone targets with receivers with over 75 targets. 5th in first read targets, meaning he was the first read of the quarterback, the 5th most times of any wide receiver in the NFL. And that's playing with Zach Wilson, Joe Flacco, and Mike White. Now, Rodgers will probably spread it around a little more to whoever's open.
Maybe.
But there's a couple other things coming up here. So he was 11th in air yards he had with 1,500 over 1,500 air yards, and he still had almost an 1,100 yard season or over an 1,100 yard season playing with a shit show of quarterbacks. His slot percentage was just 36% in the slot, 63% outside. So I feel comfortable he's going to be an outside guy.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to keep him outside most of the time. But I also feel like he has Devontae Adams' capability. So for the next couple of years, he's just going to dominate, even with other guys there, even with Alan Lazard and Randall Cobb and all that other stuff. It's gonna be Garrett Wilson. I wouldn't be surprised if he hit 1,500 yards this year. So
no, I think that's a good pick.
And he had a great season last year, and the Jets only completed 56.9% of their passes. And it was wild when you look like Zach Wilson, they threw it very little. Joe Flacco and Mike White, they throw it 50, 60 times. And Rodgers' career completion rate, 65.3%. The last 2 years, he's been over 66 or 67%. Rodgers is still a very good quarterback. And I think that if I'm going in to win, you want to build around wide receivers when you're doing a dynasty startup. And I think I would be willing to pass on a quarterback and take Garrett Wilson at the end of the first and then take the quarterback in the second, and especially in a third round reversal. So yeah. I love Garrett Wilson, and I'm trying to get him. He's my guy.
I don't blame you for being aggressive to get him. He's such a young, talented player. His ceiling is just out of this world. Just out of this world. So yeah, I'm totally fine with that pick. I would have a hard time taking him in the first, but I'm almost there. I'm almost there. But where his ADP is, I'm snagging him all day. And at this point, I have him at wide receiver 4. So I would take him ahead of AJ Brown, and I would probably take him ahead of Anthony Richardson. Don't think I can take him ahead of CeeDee Lamb. I think that's the one receiver that I still would want ahead.
Yeah, I have him flopped. I have Lamb at 4 and Wilson at 3. So
yeah, pretty darn close there. All right, well, I went a little bit deeper, and I have been preaching this name all year long. People are starting to catch up, and his ADP has only risen every time, but he still seems like such a good value to me. So I'm still not leaving my draft without Deontay Johnson. I'm not. I think this offense will be better than it was last year, and I'm going to bet against him being historically unlucky for the second straight year. I mean, we're talking about somebody that we're like 30, 40 target difference compared to the guys that had the most targets without a touchdown. So Deontay Johnson was just truly unlucky. He's averaged 6.5 a year up until this point. I think he sees the red zone and the end zone very frequently next year. But I think that he's going to be more efficient this year than he was last year too. I get that everybody's on the George Pickens hype train. I get the excitement around the guy, but I still think Deontay Johnson is the wide receiver one on this team and will continue to be for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I'm riding shotgun in that car. I had Deontay as my next one.
Did you really?
At his ADP is 8th round, 5th pick. Wide receiver 35 in the Dynasty Nerds ADP. I mean, that's absurd. He just turned 27 15 days ago. It's not like he's old. He's entering that he's got grown man body now. I know he's only 5'10", but at 27, he's got a grown man's body now. And so I'm like, perfect. You guys keep buying George Pickens. I'm going to take Deontay Johnson. If you're going to let me get him as my wide receiver 3, and I feel really strongly he could put up top 20 numbers this year, I think that's absurd. He was 11th in first read targets last year. And so he had 147 targets?
Yeah, he was targeted quite a bit.
3rd in the NFL in routes run with 598 routes. 13th in end zone targets. So it wasn't for lack of trying. Right. It just didn't convert. And he's not a slot guy. They only used him 13% of the time in the slot. So the slot is going to be a battle between Allen Robinson and who's the little guy, Calvin Watkins, the I think that's his name.
Calvin Austin.
Austin, yeah. He was injured last year. I think those two guys are battling for the slot. Outside, it's Pickens and it's Deontay, and Deontay is the guy you want to roster here. If your league mates want to draft Pickens and leave you Deontay, I mean, once you draft him, send him a thank you, $5 Starbucks gift card or something for doing that for you.
Appreciate it. Hugs and kisses.
Yeah.
Couldn't have done it without you.
Now, because it's Dynasty and we build around wide receivers, later in the draft, I start to look, who are some running backs. If I didn't grab, like if I'm building win now, I'm going to grab some top end running backs also, preferably younger. But if I'm building for the future, I'm trying to build out depth. One guy that I really like is Khalil Herbert. Now he's going the 12th pick of the 11th round. So it's a late 11th round pick. RB 42, had 731 yards rushing last year, 13th in explosive run rate. That's 5.4% of his runs went for 15 or more yards. So he's got burst. He's got the one thing that neither Deontay Foreman or Roschon Johnson have, and that's burst. I get it. He's 5'9", but he's 210 pounds. Decent RAS. He had a 6.9 RAS score. Third lowest stuff rate. So how they count stuffs, it's stopped. Runs that are not a first down or not a touchdown, or less than 4 yards or less on first down, or 3 yards or less on any other down. Third lowest in the NFL with backs over 120 carries. So he's not tall, but he's still big. He's got some power. Not a lot in the passing game yet, but I think there'll be some there. If I'm getting him at RB 42 as my RB 4 or 5, I think he's going to be flex worthy pretty much all season. He led all running backs with over 120 carries of runs over 10 yards, 17.1% of his runs, and over 20 yards, 2.3%. And he was third in missed tackles forced per rush attempt at 0.31 missed tackles forced.
Yeah, no, he was extremely, extremely efficient last year. My only concern is he's going to have to perform like an absolute stud early, because I really believe they want Roschon to be their guy. I think they drafted him for a reason. They brought in a ton of running backs this offseason on that roster. So, and he's not a guy that they drafted. So I think that is the thing that's working against him. But I agree that the stuff is there. So I have no issue with the stuff. It's more, what is the front office thinking? That's the part
what he has to do is use his built-in advantage of being in the offense last year. Mm-hmm. So he has a head start. So he knows what the play is supposed to do. And yes, his job is to help, but I like the explosiveness. Is he going to be a 275 carry guy? I don't think so, but he's definitely a 1B, 1A, split backfield guy. And I think that's what they're doing. That they brought in Homer, who's a pass catcher. They got Roschon, who's a pass catcher. They brought in Foreman, who's a banger, and they've got a lot of guys, and it's going to be a committee this year. But I like Herbert to be the guy I want out of that backfield. And at the end of the 11th round, I'm building depth, and that's a guy I'm looking for.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I'm looking at a guy that's in a very similar range draft-wise, but I'm going to the wide receiver position here. Wide receiver 54 off the board. I'm taking Sky Moore. I loved what I saw from Sky Moore on his tape. And as a rookie, just didn't get on the field as much as you wanted. But we saw him get used more and more as the playoffs went. He was actually a guy that scored a touchdown in the Super Bowl. And look, I get that you wanted to see more production early, but there's not many players that you're going to be able to draft in the 13th round that have the shot to be the top wide receiver on their team this year. Sky Moore legitimately has the shot to be the top wide receiver on his team. I don't love that he's number 25. I wish he would have picked a wide receiver number. That would have made me feel better. He would have looked a lot cooler. But at the end of the day, you're in an offense with Patrick Mahomes, and they need a second option because it's Travis Kelce, and then, the other 50%, like you get 10%, you get 10%, you get 10%, you get 10%. Like they need that true second option other than Travis Kelce, because Kelce is not getting any younger. It seems like he is somehow, but he is not. They really need that second option. Somebody's got to step up and do it. I don't think it's going to be Tony, and I'm not a Rashee Rice guy. So by process of elimination, I think it's going to be Sky Moore.
Yeah, I like Moore, and all the talk right now is that he's taken over that slot role that Juju had. Juju did lead him in receiving last year. He was the guy. So it seems like Moore is going to get that opportunity. But there's a lot depends on whether or not Kadarius Toney stays healthy, because Toney is super explosive. So I could see Toney playing that threat role and Moore racking up lots of touches, lots of catches, maybe not rocking the ADOT, but just being a volume guy after Kelce. I like it. And I think one of the things that, people are on Rice this year because we're disappointed with Sky Moore. I think what we've failed to realize is that it takes a little bit to get into the Andy Reid offense and really learn it. So I'm on Sky Moore this year as well. And Rashee Rice, he has some potential. The downside I see with him is, he's 5'11" and plays like he's 6'4".
Right.
And I don't know that that's going to convert to the NFL. He needs to figure out a more appropriate size game.
Right.
But it's also in the Andy Reid offense, there'll be a couple little quirks, I think, because they brought back Childress is now the OC again after Bieniemy left.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you though. I like Sky Moore. That's great value for him.
I'm loving it. All right, Dennis, give me your last one.
Well, my last one was Deontay Johnson.
Johnson. All right.
I frantically started to try to find one.
No, you're good. I got my last one. We're okay.
But I don't have any stats pulled up for it, but I do have a guy.
You do? All right, real quick. Who is he?
David Njoku.
Browns tight end.
He's going off at tight end 10 right now, pick 907. And I think if you're not getting one of the elite tight ends, I think Njoku has a great opportunity to outpace that by a couple spots. Tight end 6, tight end 7. Tight end 10 is a little bit rich if you're waiting on a tight end. So you have to decide to make that commitment. We talk a lot about that second tier of tight ends being about 20 tight ends wide. And really it's not. They're just guys that could pop up there. But I think Njoku is definitely in that. If you break that next section off to about 6 or 8 guys, I think Njoku is one of those guys. He looked like he was coming on last year. And they like him because they keep signing him.
Yeah, no, absolutely. All right, last one for me. And I actually had a couple guys that I could have gone with, but I'm going to go with Courtland Sutton here. And Courtland Sutton, ADP-wise, we're looking all the way. Oh, of course, I just moved it to look for another guy. He's all the way down at wide receiver 59. So you're getting him almost in the 14th round. And his ADP keeps dropping. But look, here's the thing. We're looking at a former 1,000-yard receiver that is getting Sean Payton in as his head coach. And he was actually the main target at the beginning of the year. Now, he got banged up second half of the season. Jerry Jeudy came on strong. But Courtland Sutton was that guy early on in the season. And I think people are really forgetting that. But people are all like, okay, well, what happens if he gets traded? Okay, what happens if he does get traded? Because if Courtland Sutton gets moved, chances are it's a contending team. He's not a young guy anymore. So it's not like the Houston Texans are going to want a Courtland Sutton. It's not like the Arizona Cardinals are going to want a Courtland Sutton. If somebody wants a Courtland Sutton, it's going to be a team that is contending. Maybe it's, the Giants are playing well and they need a top wide receiver. Maybe it's a team looking for their second wide receiver, like the Browns. Maybe it's, there's a lot of different options as to who could potentially trade for Courtland Sutton, but I really believe that he is a much more talented player than he's getting credit for. And everybody's just elevating Jerry Jeudy and just completely forgetting about Courtland Sutton. And I think it's undeserved.
Yeah, I like Sutton. I'm team big wide receiver.
That's true.
So Sutton was one of those guys I liked when he came out. I'm quickly trying to scroll through the stats here and see if we can find some of the things from last year. Now, last year was a terrible year, so I don't know that we're going to find
good nuggets to support our theory.
Right now, it's like we're just saying, I like this guy. Believe me, trust me.
But the first half of the season, he really was playing very well. Let me pull up his first half stats because he truly was the first option in this offense at the beginning of the year. And it wasn't until the second half of the year he was banged up and things weren't looking as good. But here's the first few weeks of his season. 4 receptions for 72 yards, 11 targets, 7 receptions for 122 yards, 10 targets, 8 receptions for 97 yards, 7 targets, 5 receptions for 52 yards and a touchdown, and then 11 targets, 5 receptions for 74 yards. So he was playing very well, very, very well. So we'll see. Quick note that just came in. Bleacher Report is saying that the Commanders ownership will likely change the team name again and do a full, complete rebranding. Very interesting note there.
Got to wash that stink off. Sutton was 17th in first read target, 17th in first read target percentage. So Russ was looking for him. It just wasn't hitting him quite as much. So that was, I agree. He has. Yeah, I think Sutton and Jeudy have that DK and Lockett kind of mojo amongst them. I think they pair well. It just, will Peyton let up? The challenge is Peyton has really supported like one super star wide receiver, and I just don't know if the two of them will get theirs.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting. Does that more go on the Peyton system or the quarterback tendency of Russell Wilson to get multiple guys involved? We will have to wait and see. So that wraps it up for tonight. Dennis, remind the folks real quick where they can find you and what you're doing.
I am at culture_coach on Twitter, doing the trade show on Discord Tuesday nights, here on Thursdays, Fantasy Football Roundtable Mondays and Fridays.
Awesome. And you can find me on Twitter at Dynasty Price. Of course, you can find me here on Thursdays. You can find me on the Dynasty Nerd Show and also the new show, Talking Dynasty. Most recent episode, we're talking Devy players. That's right. Check it out. Find me on Twitter, Dynasty Price, and we will see you guys again next week.